like a celebrity sometimes. Yeah, elbow me because sometimes I miss the people that are.
In a minute. No, it's getting better. Yeah.
Okay.
Ready.
Well, hello, welcome to Colfax, California City Council meeting, the first of the year, 2024, January 24th. 24th day of the month, 24th year of the century. I'd like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm looking around to somebody that's never done it before, and I see a new face over here. The new city manager, Ron Walker. Good evening, everyone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do have a closed session, but it is after the open session. So we will begin item 2, the open session. Could we have a roll call?
Councilmember Burris,
Present.
Hilberg,
Here.
Loman,
Here.
McCauley,
Here.
and Mayor Douglas.
Present. Okay. Item 2D, approval of the agenda order. Do we have an approval of the agenda order?
I move we approve the agenda order.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Item 3, consent calendar. 2E. Statement of conflict of interest. Have there been any changes of anybody in the council? There, no changes? Now we can move on to 3, consent calendar. We could have one blanket motion of approval of the consent calendar, or does anybody want to pull anything from the consent calendar? Seeing no.
I'd like to pull item 3D just because I would like to recuse myself from that particular item when you take the vote.
Okay, 3E.
3D.
D. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar minus 3D? Public. Does the public have anything they want to pull from the agenda? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar minus 2D, 3D?
I move we approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 3D.
All those in favor?
Second.
Or
Second.
second by Sean. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Okay, item 3A. 3D, which Trinity pulled. Trinity, would you recluse yourself?
Yes, so I will just not be speaking on this item or voting on this item. You guys are welcome to proceed on the item.
Okay.
I
Does
move
she
to
have leave the
approve.
building?
No, she doesn't have to. I think Sean just moved.
I move to approve 3D.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item 3A, the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
We've already approved the consent calendar, so you're on item 4 now.
Agency. All right. Agency reports. 4A, Placer County Sheriff's Office. Does not look like they're with us tonight. Okay. Item 4B, Highway Patrol, unless they got caught in traffic and can't get here.
Good evening, council. My name is Officer Jason Lyman. I'm the Public Information Officer for Gold Run CHP. I don't have a whole lot for you tonight, but I do have some statistics here for what we've done so far in January. We have had 3 DUI arrests, 1 other arrest. We've handled a total of 22 crashes. 18 of them, thankfully, have been only property damage only and no fatalities. We've given out 101 citations. We've had a total of 308 enforcement contacts, which is any reason for pulling somebody over or whatever and contacting them, but we did not actually issue a citation on, but just making a lot of public contacts. And then we also had 213 motorist services for people broke down along the road and stuff. So with all the weather we've had, there's been a lot of that with people broke down, flat tires with all the chain links and everything on the road. And then we also have given another 97 actual written warnings on top of all that. So does anybody have any questions for me tonight? No. All right. Thank
Okay,
you,
thank
everybody.
you. I forgot to call.
No, you're still. So now you're gonna do.
Cal Fire.
Fire Department. So when we get to Mount, she'll be her first.
Okay, next, Cal Fire. Any representatives from Cal Fire?
Thank you and good evening, Mayor, City Council, and both city managers. Jeff Lovelace, Battalion Chief for Cal Fire, Placer County Fire Department. Couple of things I just wanted to bring up. We do have some, because the last one was missed, we have our statistics. And then I got a couple pictures that I'll explain up there, which is a pretty emotional event that we ended up dealing with and then following up with just last week. But we'll start with the statistics. So if you look up there, quite average, quite honestly, for this time of year. Maybe a little bit of an uptick with traffic collisions. But with the numbers that you had up there, they were critical calls. For some reason, this last month, and this is for December, that last month there were the medical rescue, several traffic collisions were very critical incidents. One of which was a structure fire, that bottom picture there. Just down the street on Grass Valley, the folks did a phenomenal job, fully involved structure, probably 1,200 square foot. And they were able to keep it to that structure. Our IR ended up flying with the drone. Significant heat on the buildings next to it, but we were able to isolate it to just that structure. So the crews did a phenomenal job on that with Captain Beckman and several others. The traffic collision, you can see on that left-hand side. Kind of a unique situation, major damage, and I hopefully this doesn't affect anybody too bad. But major damage and required significant extrication, including the extrication tools, stabilization, and several personnel to get the victim out. We were able to get the victim out, and this incident happened probably 3 months ago, around there. Last week we ended up doing a career placement for Cal Fire and Placer County Fire Department, where we talked about our department at Colfax High School. While we were doing that, the victim was actually in the audience in the high school and ended up shaking all of our hands with the teachers with it. So just a really cool event to see that he was doing well, but did sustain significant injury, but was able to walk over and he's looking like he's doing really well. So just a really good story. Switching topics to some of our staffing, no changes with that. We're going to continue running the 2 engines out of Colfax, one up in Alta, and then no changes in our equipment. We did for Placer County Fire Department just take possession of 2 brand new Type 3 engines. Those are the 4x4 pieces of equipment. Not 100% where those are going. I know one is going to go, they're both going to go down in the valley, and they should be in service before summer. But with that, there will be an opportunity and tentative plan is for one that they are replacing will end up coming up here. So again, this is tentative, but that's really good news to put in service up here, being that our old brush or Type 3 engine went out of service and we were borrowing Altas. So good news there. Other than that, some of the events, and this is just to show the cooperation with the Sheriff's Department. We're teaching right now a command and control class that's more of a statewide thing, but we have several of our PCSO, folks down there with us and just joining forces and just continuing those repetitions of those big fires, what to do, how the communication works, in which I was actually teaching with 2 hours with Lieutenant Tyndall in front of a lot of students. So it was a good event, and it just shows how well we work together in the grand scheme, especially throughout the state. I did give you an update last or 2 weeks ago in regards to that we were going to start testing hydrants on the 8th. That process is continuing, and we're going to continue that. About halfway through, did find some issues with it, but we're mitigating those as we continue going through our phases. Other than that, the only safety message I like to give is, as always in the wintertime with the heating elements, let's just make sure people are watching their heaters, especially those electric heaters, and use placement on those and when to turn them off and when to turn them on. So that is the end of my report, unless I have any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Seeing none? Oh,
Wow. Actually, what after you PSO, the CSO stands for
Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff's Office, thank you. And can you tell me what block of Grass Valley that fire was on? Where it was?
I have the address.
It was at the corner of Rising Sun and Grass Valley.
Thank you.
okay, now it's time for 4D, nonprofit, and we're going to go in alphabetical order in reverse. VFW. This one is C.
Fox and McClary, Colfax, Veterans of Foreign Wars. We also have the Legion and the Auxiliary. The Auxiliary has a dinner coming up called Spaghetti and Meatballs on the 27th. It starts at 5 p.m. They still have tickets. It's $25 for adults, and children 10 and under, it's $15. And it's on Rising Sun up at the VA Hall. So that's the 27th of January. The next dinner that in February, every third Sunday from 8 a.m. to 11, the Veterans of Foreign Wars do a breakfast, which is excellent. And we have a no-host bar, and a lot of people like to join and meet there. Okay. On the 17th of February, the Legion is doing a dinner. It's called a Cioppino dinner, and it's very classy. It's like in a wonderful restaurant, and it starts at 5 o'clock to 6, so everybody can mingle with each other. And dinner starts at 6. It goes till 8. And that is the 17th of February. There are still tickets available, and you can call Hank at 916-216-8254 or Lori at 916-202-2400. 2851. Now, the other thing I'm going to announce, it's a ways off. And I'm going to keep announcing it. It will be for the VFW and it's called the Group of 10. It's an art opening, a chance for Colfax to meet 10 really wonderful artists in all the different areas of oils, watercolor, pastels, ceramics, and mixed media and such. It will be May 3rd. It'll be up at the VA Hall. It'll be from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. All of these artists have donated a beautiful piece of artwork to be in silent auction. So you have a chance to see that piece, purchase it, and also there's no charge to enter. And we're going to have hors d'oeuvres. All of that is free. There's a no host bar. That's not free. But you get to meet and see their portfolios. We have a lot of good artists in this area that people should be aware of. And believe it or not, art does calm you down. Sometimes it doesn't, but this will calm you down. Okay. That's everything. I hope you guys will show up. Thank you.
Hey, Foxy, the pancake breakfast, it's used to be the second Sunday. Did you guys change it to
Second
the third?
Sunday. No,
Okay,
it's the second, I'm
Sunday.
sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Second Sunday
Okay,
from 8 to 11.
thank you.
Thank you.
Foxy, what's the price on the Chiappini dinner?
The Chipino dinner?
Chiappini.
Chipino dinner is $65 and it was the same amount last year. So we have not raised the price, even though things have gone up.
Is that what makes it a classy affair?
No, because it's tablecloths, real silver
No.
and waiters and waitresses waiting on you. And it's a really great dish and hard to make. And they do a very good job. Thank you.
Okay, now we move on to item number 5, presentation. Oh, I see another, sorry, Chamber of Commerce. You're at the end of the alphabet going in reverse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Tim Ryan with the Director of the Chamber of Commerce. And just a few things. Right now, we're getting ready for the year and we are setting up our calendar and for the functions and events that will be coming up this year. And this information, Foxy already caught me a little bit, on our calendar. It will be, right now our website is under disarray. And so we are going to be upgrading that and get everything back together on that. One of our first events will be this next Thursday, February 1st, Coffee and Conversations. That will be at the train depot, 99 Railroad Street. And that starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we have coffee and donuts, pastries. We did have one coffee and conversation in January. It was a great presentation by the district attorney of Placer County. So yeah, we're really starting to build up again with the coffee and conversations. Let's see. Just to let you know that our visitor center is doing very well. Amy Andrews, our manager for the visitor center, has a lot of gifts and good products there for sale. And this month, and actually last month, we've had many visitors coming into the visitor center and the museum. And what happens this time of year with the snow, we get a lot of people going up on the train, want to see the mountains and all that. They come to Colfax at our depot. We have free parking there. It's very easy for them to get on the train where we are and the bus also. So we're very happy with that. Yeah, so that's about it. And we are looking for board members if anybody would like to take some time and help our community and work with us on the board. We're always looking for new members. Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other nonprofits that I missed in the alphabet? Okay. Move on to item 5, the presentation. of the audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2023. Lori.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Lori Van Groningen, City Consultant, serving as your Finance Director. Tonight, I'm introducing the annual presentation of the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. This comprehensive financial report has been prepared in accordance with governmental accounting standards, and the report begins on page 93 of your agenda package. The city is required by law to have our annual financial statements audited by external auditors who are certified public accountants and independent of city functions. The city procures and contracts with CPA firms licensed by the state of California to perform the financial audit. As fiduciaries of the city finances, council and staff is committed to providing complete and accurate financial information. In addition to meeting the state law requirement, the annual audit also provides benefits to the city. Some of those benefits are assurance to our stakeholders that city financial statements are not misstated and that the reports are reliable. The audit identifies and highlights any weaknesses in the city practices and procedures which might affect the financial statements. And it provides assurance that all required financial information is disclosed. At this time, I want to do my annual acknowledgement to Shanna Stahl, our city's Administrative Services Officer, for her hard work and dedication to the city finances all year long, but particularly through the year-end accounting tasks. Her role has increased each year, and her work has contributed to another successful audit process. Thank you, Shanna. And next year, you will be up here doing this introduction. I would like to also acknowledge the rest of city staff and consultants who, I was going to say patiently work with us, but I think they put up with us all year long to ensure that the city assets are safeguarded and that we strictly adhere to financial policies and procedures. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ingrid Scheiblein. She should be familiar to the city. She's been here before. She's a CPA and the managing partner of Richardson and Company LLC. They conducted our audit process, and she's going to give you a brief presentation of the report.
Good evening. I'd like to walk through the outline at a very high level. It's kind of hard to read up on the screen, so hopefully you have that in front of you. Just want to touch on the highlights of the reports that we issued as a result of the audit. First and foremost, I'm pleased to report that the opinion that we issued on the financial statements is an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, indicating that they are fairly presented in accordance with accounting principles. And the fact that we were able to issue that opinion with no audit adjustments, so everything was completely clean, which is an exceptional accomplishment. Both Shanna and Lori worked really hard to achieve that. So not only a clean opinion, but no adjustments or changes that we made to the accounting records. Just touching really quickly on the highlights of the financial information. Overall, the first table that you see there on the outline is the reserves or fund balances that you have available for your governmental activities. So that would be your general fund, all of your special revenue funds and capital projects funds, pretty much everything excluding the sewer fund. It's showing overall you increased reserves 168,000 during the year. Some of the more significant changes, 9.8 million of your equity or net assets is restricted in your infrastructure, so that's not spendable. But you do have restricted reserves of about 1.5 million. That includes mitigation fees that haven't been spent. It includes roads, street and road money, gas tax money that comes that's not been spent. So you have 1.5 million of those resources. You also have reserves that the city has set aside for operating and capital purposes of $1,095,000, and that was increased during the year. You added 100,000 to the operating reserves and 50,000 to the capital reserves. As far as just your unrestricted resources, you have 2.8 million, an increase of about 95,000. So overall, the city's financial condition and the level of reserves has definitely increased from what it was several years ago. We've seen, a lot of change in the city over the years, and so financially, a good, strong position in reserves. Looking at just the general fund, you have 2.8 million in the general fund that's available. And looking at that as a percentage of expenses is 116%. So what that's saying is that you have more than 1 year in reserves, and the typical norm is 6 months. So you're definitely in good shape as far as money held for future use. As far as the business activities, that would be your sewer fund. It has 13 million of non-spendable equity in the infrastructure. There was about $2 million spent during the year on the improvement to the facility. There's also restricted funds that are required to be held aside by your loan covenants of $1 million. And the amounts available that are unrestricted in the sewer fund are $2,037,000. There's also some designations set aside of totaling $960,000. And that was increased during the year by the council. 100,000 was added to the operating reserve and 100,000 to the capital reserve. So overall, over time, you're putting money aside and designating it for those purposes. As far as the liabilities of the city, the only debt that you have is for the sewer infrastructure project. The improvements that were done several years ago. That loan is down to 6.5 million. It was a loan from the state. The other liability that you're showing is the pension liability, and that is really just a nominal amount of 206,000. The balance did go up. If you compared it to last year, it showed a slight under or overfunding, which was an asset. Now it flipped to a liability. That's not really anything the city did. It was really just the function of the CalPERS investment pool, the return. The valuation of the assets and how they're reflected in your financials is a year behind. So at June 30, 21, there were a lot of investment gains. At June 30, 22, that's used in these 23 financials, there were losses. So really just a big swing in the investments held by the CalPERS plan. The footnotes, I just want to mention note J to the financial statements. Talks about construction commitments. There's a couple of large commitments for the water treatment plant project. Our report also includes a report on internal control and compliance. So as part of the audit, we look and evaluate the internal controls and processes in place to make sure that they're functioning the way they should and that they're properly in place. And so that report on internal control is also a clean report. Stated that we noted no weaknesses in internal controls. And we also look at compliance with laws and regulations as they relate to the financial statements and determine that the city is in compliance there. We also issued a separate letter that's referred to as a governance letter that contains certain required communications. It's in that letter that we mention that there were no adjustments in the as a result of the audit. We also mentioned in that letter that there's no difficulties that we encountered in performing the audit. If we had difficulties getting records or getting cooperation, we would need to bring those to your attention. But when we're here on site, everyone's attentive to getting what we need. They actually have provided things in advance, uploaded to our portal, so we have a chance to look at those documents before we arrive on site. So as far as the audit process, everything's in good shape, and staff is very cooperative. I have on the outline management letter, if we had recommendations for improvement that we didn't consider weaknesses, we would mention it in that letter, but we had no other recommendations. Over the years, we've had recommendations and the city has promptly addressed those. And so we have no new comments this year. And then lastly, the state requires us to issue a report on the appropriation limit, and that's also a clean report. So overall, that concludes my presentation. Pleased to report the results of a good audit. Does anyone have any questions or other areas to clarify?
As usual, thank you for a very thorough presentation. And I'm happy to hear that even with the downswing on CalPERS, we're still pretty nominal. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is this report going to be available to public on the city website or is it?
So a member of the public asked if the report was available to the public. Yes, it is. It should be included in the full agenda packet that is online. So you should be able to pull that directly from our city website.
Any other questions? I agree. I'd like to thank all three of you, Ingrid, Lori, Shanna, for wading through this morass of numbers and bringing a meeting out of it, because I don't think anybody here wanted to face all of that. Thank you again. Number 6, public hearing. There are none. Okay. Number 7, public comment. Oh, should we go first or just sometime?
Yeah, so you can go first.
Tim Ryan, City of Colfax. Just what Lori said, I'm also the treasurer for the city, and I want to thank both Lori and Shanna for all their help and getting me through all the numbers that Kim alluded to. It's quite the process, and they are both so very helpful. So yeah, just want to say that. Now, another thing I have taken on, being with the Chamber of Commerce and over at the Visitor Center, over the last couple months, we've had, it seems like maybe an increase of the homeless people that are staying there. And so we become engaged with them because they are out there sleeping on the benches, on the concrete there, on pads, cold, rainy days, very uncomfortable, and it's just not right. So with our conversations, you get to hear what has happened with these people, why they are there, and what their needs are. And so I have kind of taken on to definitely help one elderly lady. She's over 60 years old, used to work at Burger King, and also makes jewelry, used to sell that at flea markets and other events. Out of her vehicle, she lost the vehicle, and so I'm trying to get her a vehicle right now. And I'm right on the cusp. We're in the process of getting registration right now. I guess why I am here is I'm asking the audience, anybody from the city, I've just been going individually to get donations. I did purchase a car for $2,500. And so I have been building up on the funding with that. Right now, we've got a little over $1,200. But the lady in question is also going to be contributing $500, like somebody told me. So now she has skin in the game. And so that kind of prompts and helps her to be more responsible. But so what I'm finding is any donations would be greatly appreciated. And I do have a donation jar at the Visitor Center, Chamber of Commerce over there for her. Yeah, we're trying to kind of get these people back into society again. She's gone through a Great Depression, this one here anyway. And so we just kind of want to help. I definitely want to help. And we've had the whole, many members of our city have donated, and very thankful for all the donations that they're doing. We do have another lady. She would just love to get to Ohio back to her family, which means either a train ticket or a bus ticket. And after talking with Salvation Army and then also Human Health Services, not a whole lot of help. And a lot of times, a lot of red tape that you have to go through. You have to be a resident of Placer County. You have to do this, you have to do this. And so she will be another one that I will try to be helping in the future. But I would also like to see possibly the city looking into maybe how we can help these people. Some don't want to be helped. They're enjoying their lifestyle and, so be it. That's great. We meet a lot of interesting people that way. But the ones that we can help, I think it'd be great for our little town. And it's just one at a time that we just need to help. And it's kind of like we all know, we're one step away from being that, whether it's an illness, whether it's a weather-related incident that we could lose. So that's my spiel for tonight, and appreciate any of your help on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just a reminder that comments are limited to 5 minutes, but being a former president of the Chamber of Commerce, you get a bonus. And these are items you can comment on that are not on the agenda. They have to be not on the agenda, and we can't act upon them tonight, but we can refer them to staff and they'll take the appropriate action. And we do have a request from Rockland. Lisa has a comment. Oh, I thought it was on the phone. Oh.
Good evening, Mayor Douglas and City Council members. My name is Lisa DeLobby, and I'm the Community Outreach Manager for Pioneer Community Energy. Pioneer is a locally owned, not-for-profit electricity provider serving El Dorado and Placer counties, the cities of Auburn, Colfax, Rockland, Placerville, Lincoln, and the town of Loomis. We've been serving the region for 5 years and are proud to add Grass Valley and Nevada City to our service territory effective earlier this month. As a reminder, Pioneer supplies electricity indicated as generation on customer bills, but the gas and transmission and distribution costs are from PG&E. As many are aware, energy costs, including generation, are rising across the board. Despite rising prices, we are pleased to share that the focus of our board and leadership remains on ratepayer savings. And that's resulted in more than $85 million in customer savings since 2018. In December, our governing board, which is comprised of representatives from each of our member agencies, including Councilmember Lohman, approved Pioneer rate changes that support a 10% discount for Colfax residents and businesses. And that's compared to PG&E's generation portion of the bill for 2024. This results in a projected $41 million in ratepayer savings for 2024 for customers in our territory. So a typical household in Colfax with an average electricity usage, assuming 650 kilowatt hours per month, will save roughly $138 per year with Pioneer. Based on our feedback from our Community Advisory Committee, which allows customers input into the programs that we create, we plan to roll out some exciting programs this year, including partnering with local retailers and offering discounts on LED lighting, programs for solar customers, programs specifically tailored for commercial customers, and more. We plan to be on your agenda in the future, hopefully to discuss in greater detail our successes for 2023 and plans for 2024. Again, we're committed to providing customers with competitive rates, exceptional customer service, and a choice of energy options. And if you'd like more information, you can find it at pioneercommunityenergy.org. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Any other comment on the phone or public comment from the audience?
There's no additional public comment.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to council business. I think we go into committee reports at this time. This time of the year throughout California, there's not a lot of meetings, so there may not be a lot to report. But shall we start with Sean with committee reports?
Yeah. Calendar here. Sure, get the date right. Last week on the 18th, I was at the Pioneer Community Energy meeting. My report basically got covered for me, so that was great. Thank you so much. But a lot of good things coming up. was mentioned. A lot of good programs for people in Placer County to for the LED bulbs, and also looking at sponsoring providing funding for more diverse energy production, like biofuels and or and hydroelectric. Let's see. And tomorrow night is going to be the Placer Sierra Fireside Council meeting here at the City Hall chambers at 6 p.m. That's all I got.
Okay, Larry.
The Weimar Applegate Colfax Municipal Advisory Commission that advises Supervisor Cindy Gustafson. We haven't had any meetings. That is not a voting group. I think at one time that they were, but there hasn't been any meetings. I'm also a representative from the council to the Sierra Vista Community Center. And we are going through the throes of trying to make sure we have enough money to survive another year. We run a very tight budget. We're talking about some new ideas and some new things, and more later.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn.
Let's see, I did attend SACOG's meeting last week, and they are working on bringing in the volunteer toll lanes in Sacramento. It happens a lot out towards the bay, basically turning your HOV lanes into, if you want to pay for it, you can drive through it, even if there's only one person in your car. So I don't know quite how far they're expanding it. You probably know where all they're gonna cover those.
Yeah, so that's currently still in a feasibility
Yeah.
study phase, but it will probably continue to expand among all the HOV lanes you'll still be able to use the HOV lanes if you're carpooling for free. You'll still be able to use them if you have the Go sticker from an electric or hybrid vehicle from the DMV, for free. But it would add the additional option that if you want to pay to use that lane as someone who's in a single occupancy vehicle, and you would have that option to do so, which is something that is available in other jurisdictions. And it's been shown to reduce some of the constraints with traffic, because it prevents a lot of the weaving in and out of that lane to dodge the cops that people do. It does open up the lane quite a bit and help with congestion. So it's probably going to move forward within the next year here, and we'll see how that ties into the PCTP area, because we don't have an abundance of HOV lanes to begin with. So it may not come into Placer County for some time.
Yeah, it was a very long heated discussion that they were having. It took, I mean, we ended up cutting short. They didn't hit like 3 or 4 items on their agenda because they got into it. So.
There are some just for the public's understanding, it's not a simple discussion of should we toll or should we not toll? Should we make that option available? Should we not? That's not really what's causing it to be so heated. It has more to do with who would be controlling the money, where would the money be going, how would we be collecting the money? Those kind of questions that are making things very difficult. And then who would sit on any board that would make those decisions? And then right now there's concern over whether Caltrans would have a place on that board, which is very contentious right now.
Yeah, that's definitely where most of the conversation came in. So yeah, just so you know, you may have some of those options in the next year or so. I did attend the coffee and conversations that the chamber did, and like Tim said, we had the district attorney come out. The district attorney has been able to, through a grant, put together a task force on retail theft. We all know, courtesy of some of the laws that California has chosen, that they are not prosecuting a lot of the smaller store theft, but the district attorney is really trying to push make sure it's still being reported, because they of course want to get it put back on the ballot eventually and get some of those laws repealed. So I know myself and Amanda from the chamber, and actually one of the individuals from the DA is going to be making some stops amongst our businesses here in the next couple weeks. And after I met with PCSO as well, in regards to the steps to take when they are dealing with theft, and the things that the sheriff would like them to do to make sure they're still getting accurate reporting on it and it's not getting ignored. In addition to that, I did attend a webinar that is actually it was a fire insurance crisis webinar through the League of California Cities, which was
interesting and some challenges that we all know that we have in California with our fire insurance and kind of some of the inside details. I'm actually going to be talking to Ron once he gets settled in about bringing them up here for a public meeting to be able to talk with all of our homeowners in regards to the fire insurance situation that we're having. And I think that is it on my updates.
Okay,
Yep.
Trinity.
Awesome. So I had a PCTPA meeting this morning. I think this is the only thing that hasn't already been reported on. The primary subject that we went over during open session was the feasibility study progression for the I-8065 corridor charging and EV accommodation for infrastructure. So there is discussion right now about adding what would functionally be a truck stop for EV or fuel cell or both, or, you know, looking at what the options are, but that's the foundation of the conversation at this point. I did make some comments this morning that I have concerns about trying to put a truck stop type infrastructure in that highly dense area. Especially because we're talking about a 10-year plus implementation process, and with future expansion in that area, that corridor is going to meet a level of congestion like hell hath no fury. I don't think that putting a truck stop in that location is necessarily going to be great, especially when we're talking about the state's initiatives and the funding that we're looking at for long haul transit related to EVs. So I know I've shared my opinions before about the need for diversification in our portfolio. If we're going to embrace any kind of electric vehicles, we don't need to put all our eggs in the basket of charging. There are multiple technologies, and fuel cell is one that makes a lot of sense for the trucking industry. So I did make comments that I'd prefer to see a accommodation for EV fuel cell up here in Placer County District 5. We'll see if that gets taken into much weight or value, but that's my opinion. So that's really all I have to report out on.
Okay, thank you. The only meeting I had scheduled was Placer County Economic Development Board, where Larry is also on. And I drove down there and there was a little Post-it note on the door saying they had to cancel the meeting. So I didn't have any official meeting, but like Carolyn, I attended the coffee and conversation that Tim Ryan alluded to. And I hope we get that going again, because the district attorney, Mr. Geyer, came up, not only himself, but with most of his staff. I mean, typically you would think maybe just one representative would come up, but I was impressed that he brought half of his staff up, and he said he takes us as seriously as Auburn. So that's nice that he views us on the same status as, Auburn. Next.
Before we move on to the operation, are we able to backtrack so that the sheriff can add his update for us?
Of course.
Sorry, we're late.
You're fine. We're gonna let you play hooky.
Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of City Council.
I'm not mayor anymore.
Oh,
Mayor Emeritus.
Mr. Mayor. All right. Well, there we go. I started off with a bad one, so all right. Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of City Council, my name is John Tanaromi. I've been a deputy up here for a while. This is Jaden Wong. He's training up here, so we get 2 for the price of 1 for this month. First, we'll cover some statistics from December, because I was told that we haven't done those yet. In the county, we had 3,948 incidents, 439 reports written. In the city of Colfax, 104 incidents with 15 reports taken. 11 of those incidents were some type of transient activity. 17 traffic stops, 4 alarm calls, 4 disturbance calls, and 18 suspicious activity calls. So pretty standard for Colfax. Our update is that winter seems like it maybe has finally arrived, which is good. We are prepared to, as usual, be helpful if we get inclement weather involving snow. We just want to remind everybody that when the roads get slippery, to be patient so that we can avoid banging cars into each other because that's always a hassle for everybody. I understand that one of my partners went through town distributing a business plan from the sheriff's office. I don't have one in front of me, but I looked over it last week. And it is a pretty cool document. It has obviously lists of phone numbers, people to contact, but it also covers like the trespassing, how to handle trespassing, ways to harden your business. And those type of like how to handle your cash deposits and just different tips and pointers from the sheriff's office in order to run your business safely and effectively. And if you have issues, who to contact, what steps to take, and what to expect. So that being said, again, it has been busy today. So sorry we're late. Does anybody have any questions for either of us?
I just have a simple question.
Okay.
In the time you've been here, have you seen any trends? Or you made a comment there saying that this is pretty much average for Colfax. Is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, everything is, shoot, so I've been in Colfax for 2.5, almost 3 years. And since I've been here, it ebbs and flows, right? It gets, when the sun comes out in the spring, it gets a little rowdier, and this time of year, it's hard to find somebody to pull over because there's nobody driving around, and it's pretty mellow. So it's being Colfax, and it's just what we like. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
There are, okay, the question was about this business support guide. And they can be obtained from our substation. So there are some more at the substation. If you need some, swing by if you see a car out front and bang on the door, and somebody should be able to come out and get you one.
Tim, when I met with Officer Griffiths this week, I asked him to see if he can get some more of those to get over to you guys at the chamber. So I absolutely brought that up to him when I talked to him.
Yep. Speaking of the chamber, you guys got your tent and your tables and things back from us? Okay. Perfect. Anything else? Cool. Sorry for stepping in it and sorry for being late. Thank you.
Today. Okay, thank you. Next, we move to item 8B, City Manager Update. Join.
Well, I will, as your outgoing interim city manager, I'll give the first part of the report and then I'll turn the reins over to your permanent city manager, Ron Walker. Just kind of following up on what the sheriff's department was talking about. And as previously reported, we've installed no parking signs along North Canyon, and we're kind of working on adding those to other parts of town, including South Canyon and South Auburn. Essentially what those require is that there's no parking in those locations when there's greater than 2 inches of snowfall. So hopefully those will mitigate some of the parking issues that we've had when there's highway closures, and allow the sheriff's department to warn and eventually ticket vehicles that park in those areas. It does not address issues when people park on private property. That is the responsibility of the private property owner to enforce parking on their own property. And I know we've had some problems with that, but those owners would have to take those matters into their own hands when somebody parks, in a driveway or something along those lines. Moving on, happy to report that we received our bids for the CDBG roadway project last week. We're still in the process of qualifying those bids, which means we're going through them to make sure that they're all and including the low bid is qualified and eligible to bid on the project. But I'm happy to report that all of the bids, we received about 8 of them, were all under the engineer's estimate. So that means that we have sufficient funding to implement those projects, and staff is working again to qualify those bids. And then in the next couple meetings, we'll be bringing that forward to the council for a formal award of the low bid and a contract with that low bidder. So we're happy to report that we came in under engineer's estimate. There was certainly a fear with the way public works projects were going in California right now that wasn't as certain that was going to happen. So happy to report that project's moving along those same lines. The I&I project is also going to be, we've received preliminary approval from the State Water Board that we're going to be able to reconstruct about 3 of those roads that are being worked on as part of the I&I project. So many of the roads are having, replacement of what has been taken out, but a number of those roads are in such severe condition that the state is going to allow us to actually reconstruct those roads. So that actually expands what is going to be done with the CDBG project. So, hopefully around 9 roads within Colfax are going to be able to be improved in the next coming year or two. We're already kind of thinking to the future and looking at with our consultant team the future of applying for more CDBG funding. There's certainly a lot of hoops that have to be gone through. It's certainly taken us 5 to 7 years to get to this point. Hopefully it won't take that long again, but certainly there is an opportunity to apply for the state CDBG over-the-counter program. And so staff's going to be looking at the feasibility of some very critical roads like South Canyon, which needs a total upgrade and total reconstruct. At your next council meeting, you're going to be receiving a presentation by R3, which is a solid waste consulting firm hired by the cities of Colfax and Auburn and the town of Loomis to take a look at potentially working together as 3 small cities on getting improvements to our garbage contracts and also coordinating our implementation of SB 1383, the food waste recycling and other material recycling program. That's very difficult for small jurisdictions to implement, and it would be very advantageous for us to do that together as opposed to doing that separately, which is a big impact on city staff time. Tomorrow night we'll be having a meeting with the Shady Glen residents and attending that meeting are going to be Councilperson Burris and McCauley, as well as staff from the State Regional Water Quality Control Board and our consultant team and city staff to provide the residents out there a status report on where the project stands, what kind of goes into the feasibility study to look at extending sewer service to Shady Glen and answer any questions. It's kind of the start of that process. There's a lot of questions at this point that we don't have answers for because the feasibility study is really the way we gain knowledge on, things like where would the sewer line go and how much would it cost and what is the process to potentially annex a portion of the unincorporated area into the city as part of the project. So that kind of meeting kind of kicks off tomorrow night at 6:30 at Shady Glen. Last thing I would mention is before I turn it over to Ron is that this week the mayor signed the minor amendment to the Placer County Sheriff's Department contract. That amendment was reviewed by Vice Mayor Lohman and Councilperson Burris earlier in the year as they're part of the Public Safety Ad Hoc Committee. There was some very minor administrative amendments, no change in costs or anything like that. But that was approved, signed by the mayor this week. Lastly, I just would like to say thank you for letting me be your interim city manager. I'm very happy to have filled some big shoes from your former city manager, Wes Heathcock, when he went to the town of Loomis. And it's just been a real pleasure working with the town of Colfax, or the city of Colfax. Got the, Loomis mixed up there, but a real pleasure. And certainly I'm not going anywhere. I'm still in Placer County. So if you ever need any help in the future, all it takes is a phone call. And I've been working with Ron on transition, and he also knows that I'm just a phone call away or a cup of coffee away from any help that he needs. So.
Mike, I think we want to thank you as well really quickly before we proceed.
Yes, we have a plaque. Mike Luke in the city of Colfax would like to thank you for your hard work and dedication to the Colfax community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, first I'd like to express just how phenomenal Mike has been with the transition. Mike has introduced me to many stakeholders and project managers, spent a lot of time going over the projects with me, trying to get me up to speed. He keeps telling me it's the intake of information is akin to drinking out of a fire hose. So I'm not drowning yet, but I'm certainly wet. In my first few days here, I've met with all the staff members from the courtyard to the wastewater treatment facility and all our professional consultants, and they're all just wonderful people. I think it's going to be a great place to work. So I'm very excited about that. I've been over to the museum. I love museums. The Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center had nice long conversations there. Of course, I stopped by the library. I've also stopped into multiple businesses, introduced myself, talked with businesses, see what their wants and needs are, and just basic introduction. Worked with some residents who solved some of the I&I construction issues that are going on. In the process of developing a plan for the mid-year budget, strategic plan, and the next 2-year budget. And we're also in the process of ordering new signs for the sign damage and the roundabout in there, so that should be fixed as soon as we get replacement sign. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 9, council business. For the first time, we have a workshop on the downtown connectivity / Main Street improvement plan. Mike / Ron, would you like to?
Yeah, so I'll kick this off, and then we'll turn this over to Josh Meyer and Heather Anderson with the consultant team to kind of go over the plan and to guide the workshop. So back in 2021, the council blessed pursuing a Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant of about $238,000. Which included not only the grant funding of $211,000, but another $27,000 in city matching funds to essentially embark upon taking a look at our downtown area. Josh and Heather will kind of go over all the purposes and results of the grant and where we're at and the like. But kind of to cut to the chase before I turn it over to them. Is really the crux of the grant is to improve the downtown area, to really look at economic development for downtown Colfax. And the way to do that is to provide better connections between the rest of the community and downtown Colfax, take a look at infrastructure improvements within downtown Colfax. And then take a look at a number of soft costs that can be done in terms of branding downtown Colfax. And really, again, the bottom line is looking at the economics of downtown Colfax. So there's a lot that goes into this plan. It's taken a lot of work on the behalf of the consultant and city staff. But we've also requested a tremendous amount of input from the community The consultant and staff put together a steering committee made up of a number of residents and businesses and organizations and public safety members within the community that guided the study along the way. We took advantage of many community events such as the 3rd of July and Railroad Days and Winterfest and other opportunities to get input. So we had a tremendous amount of input from Colfax residents and people outside the community, and put together what we think is a really, really good roadmap. And that's what it is. It's a roadmap for Colfax, probably for the next 50 years, to take a look at what improvements need to be made to help improve downtown Colfax. There's some low-hanging fruit in this plan, things that we can pursue right away. But many of those projects are going to take a tremendous amount of resources that the city will have to pursue, seeking funding for design, environmental review, and then eventually construction. So, but you have to start somewhere. So this plan kind of sets the tone, and I think we're very proud. Staff and the consultant team are very proud of what's been brought forward, and it has also been guided by an ad hoc committee that was created by the council last year, with Mayor Pro Tem Lohman and Councilman Hilberg, which was vital to its implementation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Josh and Heather to present the plan and conduct the workshop. The council requested that we do this in 2 steps. One is a workshop on the plan itself, and then we'll bring the plan back at a future meeting for adoption and ratification.
Good evening. So I think somebody's probably got control of the slides. Otherwise, I'll just talk and talk and talk, and you'll have to cut me off. But while you're getting it queued up, yeah, I think we have Caltrans to thank to help with the funding. I'm with the Civic Well. We're a nonprofit based in Sacramento. Small group. We work with cities and counties, unincorporated areas, some community leaders all over the state on these types of projects. And we were able to partner with the city and put together a proposal, and we're successful in getting funding from Caltrans to be able to do this effort. And with that, the Caltrans grants allow you to set aside money for bringing on a consultant team. So we went through a competitive process, got a lot of really good proposals. Ended up going with the team that won, GHD, and very glad to have had them on board. And we've all worked together as a project team with the city and the advisory group and committee as well. So I'll just see if the slides get queued up, and if not, I'll just I'll keep on going.
Nothing wrong with that. That's the joy of workshops, is we get to have a little bit less structure. And I think we all appreciate that when meetings go long.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a technical issue with Adobe. It'll be just a moment.
And the other thing is, the outgoing city manager, Mike, brought up is that, having this type of plan, it does put the city in a better position to pursue funds and pursue funds to do the really detailed design and planning that's necessary. That's the first step. And then the second step with that, you're shovel ready and you go for the next phase and you start building things. And there are dollars coming down to the federal government, and the state does have money as well. Even though we have a budget shortfall, there's still some pretty steady programs through the active transportation program and other programs that can be pursued to start implementing some of the planning, the detailed design and construction. So.
If you don't mind,
Sure. Not a problem. Right now, for instance, of a possible consideration is the active transportation program for California is going to have a call for applications that are due in June. They're a lot of work to put together, so I'm not committing the city to be able to pull it off, but it is an opportunity. And in talking with the school superintendent, there was some interest in maybe looking at some safe routes to school projects. So we'll be sure to pass on that information and be available if there's capacity to look at that. So, you know, funding opportunities come. They come regularly every other year. And so it's getting the funding, then if awarded, doing the work. So as you know, it takes a few years. And so it could be several years, but there may be some things that are more quickly implementable. Smaller scale projects too. Won't take quite as long. So, yeah.
For me, better sooner than later.
Yeah.
'Cause I get up and
There are a lot of places I work and my own community where I would love to see in my lifetime things happen. Yeah. So. Okay, great.
One of the early projects that that has potential coming out of this plan is the Bunch Creek Trail. And just to give you an idea, the city sought funding through Placer County Transportation Planning Agency and was allocated money in that project to do design. And so one of the first things that can be done in terms of implementation of the plan is to hire a design firm to design that Bunch Creek Trail and potentially another roadway associated with that. That will be a process that will take, a year or two to actually do the design of that trail. And then it'll ready that project for the ATP program, either the SACOG Regional Alternative Transportation Program or the state Alternative Transportation Program. So, from obtaining the funding, which, took a couple years to get just the design funding. And then it takes a couple years to actually do the design. And then it probably takes another couple years to actually go get the design. So, projects, even very simple ones, sometimes can take 6 to 10 years to get ready for construction.
Yeah, and adding to that, that one project, something that came up again and again was repeated is that people coming into town, you have sort of two downtowns, right? You have the highway oriented and then you have the historic downtown. So creating more connection between the two and more awareness, particularly for those who might be just passing by, they may not be aware there's actually this historic downtown and it's not really very far away. It's about a half mile, but it feels further away than it is. So the trail is something that a lot of people pointed to. So it could be a good opportunity.
Yes, I'm hoping that'll be a 40-foot wide 2-lane trail with a bike path on the side.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do there.
Extra wide trail.
Yes.
A real trail.
If it's in the packet, we can look it.
Yeah.
The plan is in the packet. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh, it's up on that side.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, we already talked about it. We can go to the next slide. If that's possible. Great, about the plan. I think we've talked about this as well, and there's sort of two focus points. There's the historic downtown, few blocks that are right here, and the idea was to get a little bit more detailed design there, but also paying attention to a wider area and thinking about improvements that could improve visibility, wayfinding, and connection into the downtown, help motorists find their ways, draw people in. And then finally and if you can move to the next slide. I think we can pass on the schedule. We've talked about that. We're near the end right now, so. So there's the study area. It's a little bit difficult to see, but in the yellow area, it's the area that we're in right now. And so but we did look at the wider area and think about connectivity in general. But the interior, the downtown is that we already have a really high functioning Main Street, but keeping businesses here and all of that has been a challenge. And so we want to build on what's here. We're not trying to reinvent anything. This is a pretty neat place, and but there's some extra pavement out there. People pointed out the street's really wide and might be a little bit of space there that could be repurposed, beautified, greened up a little bit, improve the walking environment, and also make it a little bit more comfortable for bicyclists coming in. There are recreational bicyclists, and there are some people that bike for transportation around here as well. And also connect the residences, the neighborhoods, the housing nearby, and make it very comfortable for residents to come downtown, and maybe we can help spur economic development. So can move to the next slide. Community engagement, next slide, please. We've talked about this. Won't spend too much time, but we had a really good, robust steering committee or advisory group, we called it, and we had 4 meetings. Mostly just to, get a sense of what are the most important issues to think about addressing, get that out, get a chance to take walks with people around, have them show us around, observe together what we're all seeing. We just wanted to spend a lot of time here, and get used to how things work, have lunch, come here at dinner time, be at some of the festivals and so on, and do it with locals and do it with visitors. So good group that provided input all along the way. As we mentioned, there were a series of workshops. We did quite a bit in June over couple of days. We set up in front of storefronts and had maps and other things for people to walk up and talk. Met individually with emergency responders and safety folks to make sure whatever we come up with is going to work well for emergency and public safety. Met with artists, local artists, and also the Historical Society, Garden Club, and the schools. Got a chance to go to this meet with one-on-one with school staff as well. So, and I should mention we were at all of the major events we got to do. I think 3. I know there's more, but we were able to be here in July and spent the day here in a booth, and also railroad days and Winterfest. So, next. You can move on to the next slide. Yeah. Here's some action shots of the community workshop. Next slide. We have a project website. You can go to it now. We keep information up there. It's interactive. Next slide, please. And the next slide as well, please. So we did create a way for us to record comments and populate online maps, and also people could go directly on themselves and identify improvements, things they'd like to see happen. And one of the things that I noticed through the surveys, and also everybody that we met with, some communities I'll work in, and what you hear more is problems, complaints, things that need to be fixed. Why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? Remarkably, that none of that happened here. Everywhere we went, all we heard was, you could do this, we could do that. What if we do this? What if we do that? So there's definitely a pretty, and I'm not making it up, this is a really solid, positive energy here, and more focused on possibilities. Recognize there's problems, but the discussions around the possibilities more than it is around any limitations and problems. Next slide. It was important for us, to do our due diligence and make sure that we knew all of the planning that was going on, all the previous plans, build on them, not start over again, and also make sure we understand all the projects and things that are happening now and the opportunities that might be able to connect with this planning effort as well. So we did our homework. Go to the next slide. More on various kinds of trail studies and other things that are happening in the area. I won't go through it. It's in the plan though. You may be familiar with a lot of them, but you can scan and go, oh, didn't realize this was happening. Maybe we should look at that plan and capitalize on it. And we also looked at programmatic changes as well. So when we're talking about plans, we're talking about infrastructure, built environment. Program is a little bit more, the kinds of things that can be done at a programmatic level. It's not so much built, it's more policy, it's more change, it's support, service, and things like that. So next slide, please. I think we can move on in the interest of time. So with that, we'll get to the meat of things. I'm going to let our esteemed engineer take over, Heather, and she can take it from here. So I'll be up here about.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you everyone for being here and talking through this. Obviously, we've been pretty close to this for the last year, so it's nice to get to talk about it a bit. And I echo what Josh said is I think every engagement that we had, it felt like a team. We always were working towards some end goal together, which was really positive. So as part of the plan, back to what Josh mentioned, we started with the broader pyramid of what really touches Colfax at all from previous plans so that we're not just reinventing the wheel. And then also looking at existing conditions that exist. So next slide. So again, big picture, really the focus of the plan, the way that the grant was funded in itself is really meant to be for that gold area, that yellow block, where we're sitting, historic downtown. But it doesn't help to just upgrade 2 blocks. We have to look at, again, that wayfinding and what's happening kind of in the immediate surrounding area is why we expanded the footprint a little bit larger. Next slide. So we evaluated collisions. This is all, again, detailed in the plan. We looked at, different options, again, for getting multimodal opportunities. So these are just some samples of what, a class 1 versus class 2 means, because not everybody knows what that is. Next slide. Next slide. And then evaluated what is out there today and where there are some gaps that we could potentially look at filling and what those opportunities could be. Next. And then here's some samples of pedestrian facilities that are mentioned in the plan. And next. And same thing, where we have some shortfalls in the existing sidewalk, the connectivity issues that are out there, especially as you're getting from and to downtown specifically. Next. And then based on what we saw in the existing conditions, we made multiple recommendation and options, kind of, again, that footprint, right? That guideline for moving forward. So we didn't necessarily say thou shalt. We said, we can, right? Is how this plan's written so that it does open us up for opportunities for future funding. So we have kind of 2 big picture, again, wayfinding to and from. So there's a broader, again, the big gray area, right, of the study limits of how we could improve wayfinding. I think if you could go up 1, Shanna, if it's cooperating. Oh, okay. Oh, that's bigger. 1 up. 1 more up. 1 more up. I don't know why I did that. There we go. Okay. So again, that big gray area. And so there's a lot of opportunity for future intersection upgrades that help, draw people to and from downtown. That's what the blue dots represent. Again, not making a specific, like that should be a 4-way stop or a roundabout. It would just, there needs to be some improvements there, right? Is really all the blue dots mean, and that needs to be further investigated in the future. We also added some specific locations we think wayfinding would be really helpful. That's in the big X's, that's really getting you from and to 80, as well as over near Whitcomb, just making it more prevalent and obvious kind of how to get to and from places. Again, that doesn't mean the only wayfinding that could happen, but just some obvious spots. Another couple bigger picture recommendations back to kind of the Bunch Creek Trail piece and looking at trying to get a trail connection from Whitcomb to downtown would be amazing because that would help connect from a multimodal perspective, both of the pieces of the city. Oh, there we go. And that's what you're kind of seeing in purple on when you look closer at the plan. And then there's also some potential road connections that would help as well, which is what those teal are representing. And then last but not least is a little more unique to Colfax as well, is because of the rail, obviously, component and how 174 and 80 kind of intertwine and intermix. We're recommending potentially adding some sort of notification or not really a signal, but like a sign that could be turned on and off if the train is coming, so that people could get pre-notified, then they kind of know where to go differently, right? So that's also shown on here. Next slide. So then as far as the core downtown area, we made a lot of different notes, which is what this is showing, this exhibit, a lot of which was based on the community feedback that we got from all the different public engagement that we had. And then that kind of fed us into an actual very preliminary design layout, which is on the next page, which is essentially trying to solidify Auburn as it comes into town, and add bicycle facilities, close that sidewalk gap. Also, you can see the class 1, the trail continuation along Railroad, which would, continue hopefully in the future all the way to Whitcomb. And trying to get kind of that circular opportunity between Oak and, but prior to the rail, between residential and getting into town. And then the, kind of shortening crossings where we can, adding some what they lovingly call bulb outs, because the curbs kind of bulb out a bit into the street, but it shortens the crossings, makes it safer for pedestrians, also helps to slow folks down. And we know we want a little traffic calming through here if possible, to just improve safety for all modes. And then last is the depot, potentially becoming a roundabout. Again, that's something that would have to be further investigated, but because of the different angles of the existing roads coming into a point, and then trying to get folks to slow down as they're coming into historic downtown, that's why we're showing it. That's a potential option, but again, would have to be further analyzed. So where we're at in the process, we're definitely on the one over from the far right. So the draft plan has been completed based on all the input we've received to date. That's what was attached to the packet, and there's multiple copies here. And we're looking for kind of final feedback, concerns, questions, and then we'd present, as Mike mentioned, at a future council meeting based on what we hear today, and then hopefully adopt it.
Shall we open it up?
Yeah, do we have any of the handheld microphones we can let people pass around? Just want to make sure folks online are able to hear you guys in the audience, and we're not forcing you to get up and sit down and get up and sit down.
Roxy?
Did you have your hand up?
Didn't know if you've gone to any of the clubs, say the Lions Club, and talked to any of us about what's going on.
We had a representative as part of the advisory group committee.
What representative?
We have a list of folks, and I don't recall the name off the top of my head.
You mentioned artists from the art walking town. Haven't heard of you.
They came to the booth, right? The artists did at the couple different booths.
Yeah, there's, I wasn't at that particular meeting, but there, during the June meeting, there was a meeting with local artists, and I just imagine that group of local artists might have some of the folks that you're talking about.
Is there some kind of stat in this report?
There, yeah, there's a report on pretty good overview of everybody, you know, all the groups that were represented and who we met with. So if we miss somebody, that's important to mark up.
Isn't that in the appendix of the plan? Doesn't it show who was at each meeting?
The appendix has some information and also in the body as well. But we don't necessarily have a list of every single individual. that
Are you
is-
planning to go to the clubs presenting things?
I'm sorry?
Are you planning to go? to the Lions Club, to the Rockets, to the Garden? We
We-
can.
The garden club, we did have, was quite involved. Several representatives from the garden club and also historic society. There were local artists, but like I said, you're asking a good question. I don't know if that coverage was complete. But I think we were interacting with representatives from all those groups. So, we are kind of towards the end of the project, but we'll regroup and see if there's a possibility, if there's something that we missed and.
So the Lions Club would like.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely possible for us to do a meeting, with a presentation with the Lions Club. If we can get your contact information or through the city, we'll follow up with you. See if we can, I imagine there's regular meetings of the Lion Clubs. So,
Yes.
so every Tuesday. Okay,
And
good to know.
There was a member of the garden club is actually on the steering or on the ad hoc committee, so.
Yeah.
Or not the ad hoc committee, excuse me, the advisory.
The
committee. Yeah.
advisory, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my name's Deborah Frankel. I moved to Colfax just a couple of years ago, and I'm just catching up with what's going on here. I have to get rid the draft, and I want to do that. So what I'm asking, I don't know. But I would imagine in terms of the goal of economic activity in the town, apart from the things you've been talking about that are infrastructure, there's what people come in town, what's going to be in town for them to participate in or do or buy, whatever. And so I would guess that a lot of attention's probably been made toward bringing in people who are from the outside the area and are on their way to and from some other place, to get them to stop over in Colfax. What I'm wondering about is more of the local or regional area, people who live outside the city boundaries, but come here occasionally for something, and people who live in the general area of Placer County and Nevada County, say between the area around Auburn to the area around Grass Valley and Nevada City, and developing things here that are not in Auburn or Grass Valley, that would be a reason for relatively local people to come here on a regular basis and spend some time and maybe some money. And so my question is, to what extent has that been a part of your planning? And just to go follow up on that, that's an area where I think rather than having grants, it would be a matter of doing a lot of networking with existing groups, such as artist groups, the Audubon Society, because I've been told Colfax is actually a bird sanctuary, but nobody knows that. And all kinds of interest groups that would be, that could participate in building up resources in Colfax or near Colfax that people would come town for.
I was gonna add, as far as the development side of it, that's not part of this plan. That would be covered through general plan activities and other things that the city's doing outside of this. So this is more looking at that connectivity portion of how do you get to and from what the general plan is wanting to do in downtown and elsewhere in the city.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the things that we looked at or with that in mind, didn't necessarily bring on the expertise. That's the programmatic part, right? And that's sort of, and there are other kinds of, there are do-it-yourself. Obviously, there's fundraising that can be done locally. There can be done things in partnership with the city, maybe to get an economic development grant, to get the resources, whether it's just to get the dollars to do it yourself or maybe get a little bit of help. So that would be another activity, but yeah, that is it. I think you're right on in the sense that what is it that is unique about downtown? So there are services that everybody just needs along the highway, and that's necessary, and that'll get taken care of. But this is a bit of a destination. And that's something that we learned at every event. A third or half of the people that came by were visitors. And they were repeat visitors too. So where do you get more of those visitors, that repeat visitation that can support those businesses and find that sweet spot? And, there's a whole conversation we could have around that, but it's not something that unfortunately we address too much in this planning effort. But definitely hear you and I think about that a lot myself and thought about it here and everywhere that we work.
So I have a question, as far as the roundabout that's proposed in this plan at the intersection of Depot Street and North Main Street. Did any of the business owners on Main Street bring up the fact that we have semi-truck traffic that parks there for loading and unloading? Because that's, I'm very concerned with the proposal here and the conflict it would create with traffic's ability to bypass the parked semi-trailers.
In the intersection proper? Yeah, that was not brought up when we met.
Yeah,
with folks.
they, right at, when you look at cornering from Depot Street, turning right onto North Main Street towards Grass Valley Street, when you go to make that turn, the area there where there's the proposed addition of the concrete along where there's currently parking in front of Luminaris, there's frequently semi-trucks that park in the spots or directly in front of those spots. So I'm concerned that putting a roundabout here for that particular reason would be problematic, coupled with any conflict it could have when we shut down the streets for events. So I'm just wondering about any thoughts on that, because we typically park a large number of vehicles along that intersection when we close the streets. That entire intersection becomes a parking lot.
Yeah, no, and most of it would be traversable because of the truck turns. So that's why you see a lot of extra concrete in there, is so that they can make those turns. But we did not hear about a semi-truck parking there for deliveries. Nobody brought that up. During events though, I mean, and it's kind of a free for all when you get parking going regardless. So there's still areas people can park in this, no problem, during events when the streets close.
Well, the intersection there becomes a staging setup for like food trucks and all those things. So I'm worried that having the additional concrete structures in the center.
They're all traversable. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that would just limit,
So you
that would
park right
come
over
in.
top of them?
You could, yeah. And that would limit what you can do in the center. Because one of the
Right.
things that we did hear from folks is that they might want to look at maybe relocating the cannon to the center. And so if we want to also, but it's a give and take when the design furthers, if it's holds merit to the city, then maybe it all just becomes fully mountable, right? And you could park on top of it instead, and the landscaping in the cannon gets relocated more to a corner, right? And instead of making something prominent in the middle, right? Because it definitely is a balance. We realize that as you're coming into the.
Well, to be fair, we already have something in the middle now that's pretty, you can't park on that.
Right.
So to be fair, that is there. I think my biggest concern was just trying to make that balance with that loading and unloading parking that's not going to be avoidable or adjustable.
I would say, yeah, that's the next step in the design is whatever's done there is to account for all the movements, all the parking, all the spatial requirements. But there's a lot of pavement out there when it just, taking measurements.
Yeah.
There's room to work with. So there may very well be a solution that is around roundabout, a roundabout is one way to do it. There could be a square or some other kind of greening in the center of the area. It can be fully mountable, programmable. There's all kinds of ways to design it so that it's flexible, and can be used for whatever whatever the needs are. So, but I think the main thing is that it's just a broad intersection and a little, I think for motorists, can be a little confusing, because there's a lot of space there and turning movements, and it's not quite, people know what to do. They live here, but it's a little awkward, and
You can definitely tell when someone doesn't live here.
somewhat, I've had to learn when I come here. So, I mean, but again, we have to be able to design it so you can handle all the turning movements and all the vehicles,
Right.
in order to make it work. So, yeah.
But I have to say, I really, really appreciate the railroad indicator that I was very happy with seeing. Because I know we've brought that up actually a couple times. I think we brought that up about 5 years ago, right? We're
Yeah, the
asking for
biggest
big
problem
one.
is where to put it, where you can put it early enough and you're not in the Caltrans right away.
Yeah, that's our biggest
Even
thing.
where they're asking to put it, it's in the Caltrans right away still, because it affects 174, so. Just another hurdle to go through if we decide to put it in, is getting approval from Caltrans.
I'd like to extend Trinity's question a little bit. Have you considered trends? And I'll give one example. With just-in-time software, big rigs have become a replacement for warehouses. And now big rigs are delivering to small downtown businesses instead of small distributors. And that trend is going to continue as far as I can tell, because it's cheaper for the big companies. But I've seen many occasions in the last year where big rigs aren't so much occupying parking spaces, they're parking right on the street. And in order to get around them, you have to get out on the other side of the dividing line. And I'm not sure whether there's an answer for Colfax. I think particularly at Main Street and Grass Valley Street, it happens quite often. And I see big rigs parked not only on Grass Valley Street on either side, but parked on Main Street as well.
If I'm not mistaken, in this photo, there's actually a big rig parked right on Grass Valley Street next to Paul's Market.
You are correct. It's right there. Take
Oh.
all this spot.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any better. And I just don't know what the answers are, because that doesn't help anybody.
And you're talking mostly about delivery trucks, probably, right?
I'm thinking big rigs,
Yeah.
it used to
I mean,
be
big-
that.
Yeah.
they're big delivery trucks.
But they are, it's
They're carrying a lot of
typically like
stuff. Yeah, they're big.
Hey, maybe,
Not a van, but a
Yes.
truck, a big.
so
truck.
in the past, maybe a beer distributor brought 8 different brands of beer.
Yeah.
Well, now Coors has their own, and Bud has their own, and Miller has their own, and they're all big rigs.
This is a challenge we see in main streets everywhere. And there are ways to think about curbside management and also time of day and so on. And we don't not up on the trends of where just in time is going. Is it just 24 hours, or are there more predictable times? And is it really at a time that it's going to cause backing up, or it's just a temporary inconvenience? It's just finding that balance is tricky. And we didn't have enough data or information really to kind of get into that, but there is a lot of space. There could probably be a planning effort to say, if you want to deliver, go here or go there, to minimize conflicts and interruptions, but also be convenient enough that actually works for the trucks. You can't send them off to Timbuktu and expect them to, carry stuff.
I mean, that's
so-
the question is,
Yeah.
who do you inconvenience? Do you inconvenience the people that live here, or the business owners, or the people driving through?
That's
I
what
think
we-
what we do is we
that's what the
prioritize
council-
safety. I think what we
And the
need to do is prioritize safety over convenience more than anything else. And I think safety will lead to convenience. So in this case, I think that my concerns were really rooted in, I know we have a rather confusing setup at the moment. One thing that's fantastic about it is it's spacious and visible. And so if you do have a truck driver who decides, I'm going to park in the middle of the road, and you need to go around them, at least how we stand now, I can go around that truck without a big problem because I can see everything going on in the other lane and I'm not confusing other drivers while I'm trying to drive over what appears to be a physical barrier to them, despite the fact it's traversable. And so that's just kind of the thought process I wanted to make sure we were following is, you know, if we're gonna have people parking semis, I just want to make sure people aren't causing head-on collisions while they're trying to figure out what to do about that.
I just, I think about the farm supply store.
Yeah.
They take deliveries at 5 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
and they use the parking lot there. So
Well, they
that
have the
doesn't
huge U-Hauls.
inconvenience anybody. But I'm trying to think of the beer truck that comes from the North Bay area. I think Budweiser owns them now. They park wherever they feel like, at whatever time of day. They don't care anything
You know,
about
hazard
other
lights
than.
make it okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this is just, I'll get off my soapbox, but this is a 50-year plan. This is not a 1 month or 1 year plan. And we really need to think about that. If we want small town, downtown businesses to be viable, they have to have product.
So here's an example of a project, you know, the plan identifies a problem, that there's a conflict in turning movements at that intersection. You know, the consultant team and with input of the community said, well, maybe a roundabout is something we should take a look at that. What will then happen in an appropriate time if we, you know, have money available for looking at a roundabout, you'll then hire a firm like GHD. Actually, Heather didn't mention that she's actually the designer of our existing roundabout that's there already. And what has to happen is, you know, you're probably going to spend $100,000 to $150,000 on doing a design study and doing a traffic study and taking a look at all these conflicts to see what is appropriate there. That's the next step in these types of projects is they're just identifying a problem and a potential solution. And then when we get ready to do it, then we would then do more detailed analysis of that with grant funding or some other funding source.
I appreciate that, and I apologize for taking us down this rabbit hole, but when I looked at the drawing, I had a pretty good, clear idea that no one had mentioned that they like to park there, because I don't think you would have put it there if they had said that.
And I think to Mike's point also is that, again, trying to take all of the different opportunities into account, right? We are wanting to improve safety. That does help slow folks down and set that tone. You're somewhere new, right? But as part of that future step, that would all be accounted for. But back to Josh's point, one of the things that we can bring up though, is we can make a programmatic statement in the plan that further discussion and investigation needs to be had about drop-offs and pickups and deliveries.
There is room on North Main Street. And maybe those dudes ought to have to walk their dolly across the street instead of park in the street.
There's
More
room there if
convenient
they
to
don't
them.
have all the U-Hauls there. But the U-Hauls are almost always there now. So I don't know, but I appreciate the programmatic approach, so we can just look at it in more detail.
That's important.
Because I would like to make sure, to that point about the feed store, I want to make sure we do capture, you know, what their needs are and make sure we've got all that on there too.
What two thoughts I had in mind were, moving the caboose and the train thing over to the corner to free up that corner and imitate what they have in Auburn, where they have a fire pit. That's probably been discussed and brought up.
And that was
Yeah.
shown in the graphic that has all the color boxes, because I can't really draw that. But I do have the color boxes have those annotations that did come up quite a bit, was to look at relocating the caboose.
And the other idea I had 12 years ago, I got a bid, Josh Alpine and I, on building a subway under the train tracks. At the time, it was actually a reasonable price. Today, I think it's probably gone to the moon price-wise. We should have done it then, but sometimes we have to think out of the box.
On the subject of the planning for 15 independent scrutiny, that there's possibility that There was a time when there was more freight, not only freight coming through Colfax, but there was pickup, and I understand there was a fruit, they picked up stuff, they stopped and they picked up stuff and delivered it somewhere else. I think as time goes on, it's likely that rail transport is going to recover quite a bit, and delivering things from by way of trucks and vans is going to actually be reduced, and we're going to be a little bit more close to the economy we might have had in the earlier part of the 20th century. So anything that we're planning to do here needs to take into account the possibility that the frequency of trains passing through Colfax is going to increase, both freight and passenger.
So I have a quick question. When we get further into this, because back to thinking about the deliveries, have you considered, or do you actually go to the businesses and say, okay, how often do you get deliveries? What trucks are they coming in? What time of day do they come in? Because I mean, if that's what we're addressing is that delivery traffic, does it work to go to the businesses and get that kind of data from them to be able to help make these decisions?
So those decisions would be in the next step, just like Mike said. So not as part of this plan.
But is that the normal process to go through that?
For a city and yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, it just wouldn't be funded by this grant and this plan, right? But yeah, definitely. I mean, it goes throughout, like even San Francisco is probably a terrible example of this, but obviously they've put a lot of restrictions on their businesses, right? But yeah, I think that is having that open discussion on, what they use. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things will be the geometry, just literally, how much space would it take? What does that mean? What does that mean? Is it still possible for parking to occur in some areas and vehicles to pass, or is there a trade-off that has to happen? Simultaneous with that is going to be a traffic study. Do counts, real counts, don't estimate, go, a few times. How often? What does it look like when it's busy? What's it like when it's slower? What do the peak hours look like? And then get that information, because if we're hearing about this truck traffic, is it sporadic? Are there patterns? Is it possible to take the sporadic traffic and program it so it's more patterned? Things like that would be considered as well too. So definitely need to look under the hood. The details are everything, at that point, and that's what the next phase is.
And that's what was done with the existing roundabout. Your prior city manager and Heather and others, went and met with every single business around that roundabout and every developer that had property that they wanted to develop, and said, well, what is the future capacity of that area, and the roundabout was designed based upon all that input, as well as projected future demand in a traffic study.
We even got to find out how hard it is to meet with McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, one of the goals of the roundabout is to help the businesses, not hurt them. So it's got to work. It's got to be designed. If there's something wrong with the roundabout, maybe there's other possibilities to work with that pavement to organize it a little bit better, make it a little more pedestrian friendly and safe. So, yeah.
Josh, I do want to commend you, however, every time I ran into when you guys were out at 4th of July or 3rd of July and the railroad days, your staff was really good about chatting with people, and you got up from behind the tables and were very interactive.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason you got some really good feedback, that you had a really good team that was out there picking people's brains. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's great to have conversations. It's the only way you're going to get anywhere. So, yeah, got to listen.
Maybe we can have something iconic like the world's first big rig roundhouse. Yeah. I don't really mean that.
Sorry, guys, that's just a real rough.
If there's no more public comment, do I have a motion?
It's an informational.
Oh, okay.
One last thing, if you wouldn't mind, me mentioning is that there was an individual that's not here tonight that was part of this effort, and that was Emmanuel Ursu, our former city planner, worked extensively with the team on this project, and myself and Wes and others. But in the future, Our new city planner will be working with this plan, and she's in the audience tonight, Kathy Pease, your city planning staff, who took the place of Emmanuel a few weeks ago. So I just wanted to embarrass her and point her out in the in the audience, so.
All right. We move on to item 9B, selection.
All right.
Okay, by motion, we approve.
So Kim, real quick, I have some suggested changes to the committee assignments, if you don't mind me walking through.
Sure.
Thank you all. All right.
Thank you guys so much. So the first suggestion I had was for the Placer County Air Pollution Control District Board. I know you've been attending in my stead. That's a meeting that for me is really infeasible for me to attend. I was gonna suggest that I be replaced by Carolyn on that board as the primary.
Okay.
Um,
Only if you're gonna yell at them for their policy decisions.
I mean, I do that. So I
Then-
I can yell. It's not a problem.
That's good. Just don't be afraid to unleash it while you're there because they need to hear it.
Second Tuesdays are. Where's that meeting at? It's in Auburn?
yeah, it's at the Board of Supervisors chambers, 2:30 PM.
Okay, I can make it work.
Perfect.
I can make that work.
Let's see here. I was also going to suggest that we formally dissolve the city manager ad hoc committee, seeing as we now have a city manager. We have 2 city managers. I think we're good. Woo. And if at some point we need an additional committee to help with staff recruitment or any such thing, we can appoint a fresh one, probably of the mayor and mayor pro tem. I think those were the main ones. I was talking to Carolyn about some of the political hurdles that you deal with SACOG earlier today. And how there can be some snubbing to people who are appointed. And so kind of the solution we came up to on that board for the time being is I'll continue to maintain my position as the primary on that, just because it's nice having that conduit between SACOG and PCTPA in particular. But I'll probably have Carolyn attending a lot more of the meetings. And then she'll work with me on that, and then we'll just be a lot more involved together, but only one of us needs to attend the meeting for the sake of, making sure we're not doubling up any of the stipends. So Carolyn will probably be the one attending those meetings, and then we'll reevaluate that probably after the 2024 election. Because if under our current circumstance, if this council ends up remaining the same after that election, it would be my preference to go ahead and then swap positions with her and have her take that primary seat. So that was kind of my thoughts there. That's looking to the future a little bit on that one, but I did want to make sure at least that I formally proposed that we swap Carolyn for the air pollution district seat. And then I don't know if anyone else had any they wanted to look at or any thoughts.
I'd like to first say that I have no interest in any of the stipend positions. That's not something I'm interested in. It's hard for me to take on anything new right now.
Mhm.
But I do have one thing I'd be interested in willing to do, and that is, I don't know how busy Kim is gonna be, but I'd like a more active role in the very first one, the economic group, economic development. If you want to just swap roles, that would be
Yeah,
okay
you
with
wanna be
me.
the primary.
Yeah, and then just maybe we could both go to the meetings for a while.
Okay.
And beyond that, it'd be hard for me to take on anything. I'm still recovering. And I'm very, very busy on top of that.
Yeah. Oh, I also had a question, Mike, is Project Go still meeting? I know that there's no money, but is it dissolved at this point? What's going on?
We were rotated out, and I sent them an email asking if we're being rotated back in, so I
Right,
should hear from.
I had thought it'd been disbanded, but.
that's
but-
what I thought too. I mean, we can leave it on here just for the sake of thoroughness, but I'm under the impression that Project Go is currently disbanded and will be later absorbed into PCWA. So maybe we'll revisit that one later. Because at least we can have an advisory person to whoever it is, I guess.
Sean, you have
They
the
didn't respond to me,
second
so
most
it's
of anything on there. Or do you want to keep any of those or do you want to let any of those slide? Because I'm happy to take more on my plate, so.
I'm doing all right, but if you got something you.
There's nothing that I'm like super, biting at the bit to get, but
Yeah.
I have no problem adding anything into it because I don't have a very heavy schedule on this one here. So I was just gonna throw it out there for you.
I'm doing okay. Most of my stuff's alternate, so no big deal. Yeah.
That's
Um,
always a struggle on this too. It's like once you're on one, the learning curve takes 2+ years and then you're finally comfortable. And then by then you're like overworked and you need help and
Yep.
it's another 2-year learning curve.
Yep.
I mean, I'm still gonna keep shouting your water and flood control.
That's good, cause
They canceled the last,
yeah,
three
I
years.
don't think I'm gonna be at the next one. I think I
Okay.
got, I'm going out of town
Are you okay
for
with
a
that?
couple weeks. In February.
I'm away for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
That one that was on.
Ah.
It's on the fifth, right?
That was the week after, yeah.
Cause I wanna make sure to make a note that I need to be there without a doubt.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
The only other thing I wanted to mention was I would like to throw Ron under the bus for the solid waste, task force.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Ron, you are so far into the bus. I'm throwing you down too.
Perfect. So that was previously, that was a position normally held by the city manager. He really wanted to do it because he had a good history in solid waste. So if you don't mind jumping on that one as the primary, because it's mainly staff that are doing it. I'll be able to attend the first meeting with you, but
That'll be good. You guys should go to lunch with Wes
yeah.
and get caught. There's
Yeah,
so
'cause he's
much
doing it for
drama.
Loomis too, so yeah, you can get caught up there and
There's a lot of drama.
that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one.
No.
Our solid waste is doing great. Our solid waste management companies, yeah.
So is that clear as mud?
Well, council and mayor, and I can defer to your city attorney if you'd like, because the 806 form was posted without Councilmember McCauley listed for the air pollution control district. I would advise going ahead and approving all the appointments by motion, but taking that appointment separately. And Ms. McCauley, you would abstain from that vote since there is a stipend involved.
Okay. So with us swapping on the Placer County Economic Development Board, because that's not a stipend, it's not on the 806, is that fine to go ahead and approve?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. I will move that we approve the committee assignment list with the exception of the Placer County Air Pollution Control District Board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstained?
Recuse.
Recused?
Yeah.
Abstained.
Okay, and then I motion that we approve the Placer County Air Pollution Control District appointment to be changed from myself to Carolyn McCauley as the primary.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstained.
Okay.
Do we need any comment from the public or is that not necessary? Yeah, any comment from the public? Hearing no comment from the public?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I make one more motion to make sure I'm being thorough here? I also move that we dissolve the city manager ad hoc committee.
Yes. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
We did
Looks like
it.
we're moving to item 10. Good of the order. Sean?
I'd walk out. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone
It's
loved
done.
us.
It's been too long of a night for him. Just want to say thank you, Shanna and Lori, very much for the great audit we got again. And I know that you are so diligent in keeping track of every receipt and making sure everything's taken care of. So thank you so much for doing that. And want to thank Amy for showing up and coming to help us out again. Really appreciate it. And Well, we'll bug Mike when he comes back in. So
Yeah.
thanks, Ron, too, for being here tonight and getting all around town and already getting caught up on all the great things we got going on.
Talk to people.
Yep. All right, that's all I had.
Larry?
I just want to say thanks, Mike, except maybe he already left. No, I don't think so. Anyway, thanks, Mike, and welcome, Ron. I would like to say that. And one of the things that's always been a pet peeve of mine since I moved here is that we have a lighting ordinance that we have allowed new businesses in particular to escape. We have a lighting ordinance on the books that says lights need to shine down. And the area out by the freeway especially is lit up like a federal prison. We haven't enforced it. And it's not really a complaint, but I believe that it's unfair to the local businesses when they're lit up to that point. They light them up for marketing reasons. They have the bucks to do it. And I would really like us to explore that as a council to either decide we're not going to have a lighting ordinance. It's been on the books a long time. Or else we're going to enforce it. I spoke to Wes, nothing against him, by the way. I spoke to him about that quite a few times, pointed out certain lights. This is when I was a private citizen. I was told it required a citizen complaint. And I differentiated on that. I don't think we need a citizen's complaint if somebody's violating an ordinance that's on the books. So anyway, I'd like to see that on the agenda one of these days as a positive step to help locally owned businesses.
All right, all I have, I just wanted to actually give a shout out to a bunch of our organizations. They have done so much work in the last 6 weeks in events and things they've put on. The Lions had their crab feed and that's always super popular and goes over very well. If you didn't notice this, they just had a huge fundraiser down at one of the breweries in Auburn for the 6th grade to fund their science camp. And they funded it for all of the 6th graders and it was done just by 6 parents that did the whole thing. And it was Jamie Hendricks, Mindy McGuire, Rosie Hernberg, Jennifer Clark, Tracy Stover, Malini Schumers, and Wendy Goebel. And they worked like crazy to get enough stuff together to be able to fund those 6th graders. And they did a really good job. I probably should have backtracked this. I would like to put on the agenda or a discussion that I would like us to be able to do something for Officer Danny Jacobs, because he was with us for 5 years in Colfax and made some huge improvements in our community, and he has moved on to brighter pastures. So I'd like to have a conversation at some point that we can bring him back in and give him some recognition for the great work that he had done for us.
And to be clear, he's still at the sheriff's
Yes.
department. He still lives here in Colfax. You still might see him in his take-home car in his uniform. He's not back stationed here. He just
Yeah.
happens to live here.
Yes.
He's been moved to a different beat.
Yeah, but
So.
he worked very diligently for 5 years with us and made a great impact in some of our issues. So I would like to make sure we take a chance to recognize him if we can make some plans for that. So.
Yeah, I second that.
I just wanted to bring up, we got a lovely memo from our attorney regarding council compensation and some of the legislative changes that have come up this last year. I know I have historically always been an extreme stickler for no raises ever. Especially, we've gone this long. I don't think we've done a council increase since the 80s. Yeah.
1997.
Oh, 97. Okay. So, it's been a bit. I'm open to bringing the discussion back up because I would like to talk about performance-based accountability. And I think that there is opportunity to discuss what future options for increases could look like for future councils, where there is an option to have it be based on the accountability and performance of the council. So I just think that that's worth talking about, and I'm wondering if the council wants to agendize it so we can hash it out, since now that the legislature has said that the compensation, in my opinion, is astronomical, what's available, I think it would be really good for us to set some solid precedent now, while we have a solid council that's very fiscally conservative. Before a couple years go by, maybe a couple terms go by, and we have different people with different objectives. I'd like to just set some good stones in place. So that's my thought. But that's all I had.
Well, it's a good idea. I did bring it up a couple years ago, but maybe the time is more ripe now to discuss it. So we should bring that back. My good of the order, I want to thank Mike for his past performance and thank Ron for his future performance. And my other good of the order is, since it's a new year, I made a New Year's resolution, and it's not to get into any Facebook fights. So.
Can you make one for me?
No.
One additional item for the good of the order, from your outgoing interim city manager is, would the council be, interested in, doing some kind of thank you for our outgoing, city clerk who moved on to Rockland, Marguerite Bailey? So.
Yes, there's some conversations happening. But yes, I believe I can speak for everybody on this, that we all would very much like to do something thoughtful for the city clerk that I think we're all very upset we're losing. So although we love having Amy here as our regular fill-in, but yeah.
And I've already started chastising the Rockland city manager for stealing her, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we need another county officials dinner so we can all scorn everybody for stealing all our good people.
Does the city attorney have a good of the order?
No, public comment on good of the order, maybe.
Oh, okay, public comment. Any microphone?
On the slide, there's other reasons pushing it down like. Use birds. They don't pick where they're going because of the lights and also.
Microphone?
There's people at home who need to hear. You.
Okay, sorry. I'd like to support the lighting ordinance being enforced for two additional reasons. One is that these uplights confuse the birds trying to get point A to point B, bad for them. And the other is that the more uplighting you have, the more light pollution you have, and it makes it harder to see the stars. One of the nice things about living in a rural area that is occasionally you can look up and see the Milky Way, but you can't if there's too many lights.
Okay. And I see 2/5 of the remaining audience are former mayors. Any public good of the order from any? No?
Just one more thing. We never even asked if Will would like to continue on the mosquito vector control thing. We just were like, sure, why not? Go ahead. You good with it? All right.
Do I hear a motion to? Pardon?
You go into closed session.
Oh,
But first is public comment on closed session items, and we move into closed.
okay. Public comment on closed session items. If you knew what the closed session was, you might be able to comment on it, but
Can't you tell by our confusing gibberish?
Property with UP.
any comment on gibberish? Hearing none, we will close the open session and move into closed session.